Hello, Assalamualaikum. Very good evening to all of you. So today we're going to start and continue to our second chapter, which is we're going to look at the Cold War and then the end of the Cold War. And also today we're going to run one chapter only, and I hope you can uh, hear and understand well about this topic. Okay, so let's start without any uh, without taking any much time. So we're going to start. So the end of Cold War, the New World Order. So this is the right now we're going to look at uh, the framework of the Cold War period first. Then only we start look at the end of the Cold War. Okay, so the theme will be the U.S. emerge as the world's only superpower. So this is the Cold War. So the period of Cold War 1945 until 1990. Okay, so the who's involved, Soviet Union, United States, China. So a lot of confrontation happened. For example, Korean War. You can look at the Korean War, the orange color, and then Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam War, and also Afghanistan War. This is the Afghanistan War led by the this is the prolonged war until led by the 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, straightly American put the blame to the Afghanistan warrior, which is the Al Qaeda. So this is the 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 main point lah of the emerge of the terrorism lah in the modern era. Okay, so the corporations, you can see the proxy and everything lah here. So this is on 80s. So when President Reagan take over, so the Cold War tension increased and also pursue a varieties of anti-Soviet policy lah in the Reagan's punya uh, administration. So it characterized the Soviet Union as an evil empire. So dedicated massive amounts of money to the military spending to include the strategic defense that they were initiated or they were say to Star Wars. So apa nak tahu Star Wars ni, just Google it, okay? And then successfully confrontation communist challenges in Grenada and Nicaragua, which actually created President Reagan as one of the dominants lah, incumbent in the US president elections for that period. And then Ronald Reagan win the election. So Reagan delivers his Mr. Gorbachev tear down the speech in 1987. Ya, ni gambar dia lah masa dia tengah buat speech tu. Okay, so while the US was spending at level the USSR was finding difficult to match. So the Soviet were having their own internal problems. Okay, Soviet pun ada internal problem banyak lah. So the Soviet withdrew from Afghanistan in 1989 after 10 years of a failed war and also many linked to the US experience in Vietnam. So the Soviet economy also collapsed and Central European satellites were in serious trouble lah. Okay. And this is the man lah who take over Soviet Union on the last corner. Tang last corner dia take over. So kita tengok peta dulu ni dekat atas ni belah kanan. So Gorbachev era lah. So this is the end of the era lah. So his name is Gorbachev. Ada yang dipanggil sebagai the madman lah. Orang kata peta lah. Orang peta sebab dia ada tanda lahir kat kepala tu. So Gorbachev wanted to save USSR. So dia implement dua economic reform yang dinamakan sebagai glasnost and also the perestroika. So the restructuring and also decentralizing the economy. This is perestroika. And then an opening of the Soviet society to the public scrutiny. This is glasnost lah. So Gorbachev reform proved difficult to implement and unleash holistically from the old order in threatening long supposed criticism and also acting at the nationalist separatism. So by the summer of 1990, so Gorbachev reform had spanned themselves. Okay, so kegagalan Glasnost and Perestroika bring to the collapse of Soviet Union. So revolutions broke out throughout Eastern Europe as people overthrow communist dictator in the place like Poland, Bulgaria and also Romania, and countries such as Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia were broke apart, pecah dua. So on 1989, the Berlin Wall came down and East and West German were united in 1990. So ni gambar lah, Roman Revolution was a violent overthrow at the communist regime in Korsov. Okay. So the collapse of Soviet Empire beginning in 1991. So Soviet republics began declaring their independence from the USSR. And then a group of conspirators representing the certified element of the Communist Party, the KGB and the military attempt to seize power while Kubajev masa tu tengah bercuti, diorang pergi rampasan kuasa lah. And then Boris Yeltsin crushed the group, but himself rephrased, dia replace lah Gorbachev. And the end of 1991, the USSR had ceased to exist. So bila jatuhnya Soviet Union dalam dunia in the world of power, it means the end of bipolar world lah. So the dismiss of Soviet Union left to the US as the world sole power without the dangers of a superpower confrontation. So the US was now more free to use its military power. Additionally, new opportunities for cooperative international effort will become possible without the bipolar competition. So this new dynamic will be teased when Iraq invade Kuwait in 1990s. So apabila end of bipolar, end of the Cold War, tiba-tiba ada pula perang teluk antara Iraq dengan Kuwait ni. Okay. So the new world order, so the theme of international cooperation and military intervention in the post-Cold War era. So the new world order begins when American took power. Okay. And then this is post-Cold War environment. So this is CIA director. He says that Cold War threats were potentially catastrophic, but they were also measurable and somewhat predictable. So the bipolar structure and the desire to avoid superpower confrontation had provided a certain degree of order and stability. So the post-Cold War period was much more ambiguous and uncertain and many new threats emerged. So bermakna apabila Cold War tamat, bermakna persepsi ancaman tu berubah. Threat perceptions would changes, you know. So kalau kita tengok threat perception nanti on chapter 5 saya akan masuk, ancaman ni ada dua bentuk lah. Satu dipanggil traditional threat, which is the war. Inilah threat perception yang tradisional ni into a new threat. Second dipanggil apa? Non-traditional threat ataupun new threats lah. Ancaman-ancaman bentuk baru macam terorisme semua tu lah. Ini yang dipanggil sebagai new threats. So international economic was challenged. The post-Cold War era include an ever-widened gap between rich industrial nations, mostly in the northern hemisphere, and poor agriculture one, mostly in southern hemisphere. So the goal of all poor nation in economic growth most lack to a requirement for industrial development. Was trapped in a cycle of poverty, lack of capital resulting from low production leads to low saving, which is turn mean little or no available capital for future development project. So international economic opportunity lah. So the collapse of communism in USSR and Eastern Europe opened a huge economic market. Okay, ini yang menyebabkan EU ditubuhkan. So on other hand, West German previously booming economic struggle as it tried to integrate the much poorer former East German. So in 2004, the EU swelled the 25 members, including the former Soviet republics of Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia. Ni semua join EU pada 2004. So ethnic conflict and humanitarian crisis ada juga. Okay, bila end of the Cold War, so isu-isu baru, benda-benda baru yang timbul. For example, issue ethnic conflict and also humanitarian crisis lah. So the Cold War structure had kept in check ethnic division in many countries and limited military intervention. So the end of Cold War changed all that. The Secretary General pada masa itu betul-betul sekali vindicate the legitimate involvement of the UN in peace enforcement and peacekeeping operation. President Clinton proclaimed a national security strategy of engagement and also enlargement. So after the Cold War, the United Nations went from an average of 3 or 4 peacekeeping operation a year to 13 in December 1992. Bermakna pembesaran UN tu lah. Peacekeeping operation ni sebab ada negara-negara yang dalam krisis, so peacekeeping akan pergilah. So daripada 4 je peacekeeping operation, 3 or 4 kepada 13, bermakna banyaklah krisis yang berlaku selepas Cold War. Okay, this is from Peter Bernard in explaining why the US intervened in Kosovo. Kosovo ada krisis kan, where there was no direct threat to the US. So in globalized war, bad things that happen in other countries spread more quickly to our shores. Genocide spawned refugees who destabilized their neighbors. Corruption sparked financial meltdown, which rocked the world economy. Pandemics horoscope across the global. Macam sekarang lah pandemics. So ini adalah important lah to UN to interfere. So this is in Somalia. Isu yang berlaku di Somalia, konflik etnik. So in Somalia, various clan leaders struggle for power and plunged into the country into the humanitarian crisis. When Yugoslavian Republic began to seek independence, terrible ethnic conflict ensures. For example, Bosnia also initiate an ethnic cleansing campaign against Bosnian Muslim. So Yugoslavia pun ada isu juga the same against the Kosovo Albanians. Ni adalah warlord lah, Muhammad Farah Aidid lah di Somalia. Siapa yang pernah tengok cerita Mogadishu tu, Black Hawk Down ni, cerita ni lah, kes ni. Okay, so ethnic conflict in Haiti become more crucial. In Haiti pun kita ada ethnic conflict lah antara Hutu dan Tutsi dekat Rwanda. Okay, so which resulted millions of that from the Tutsi, the minority people lah. So Hutu and Tutsi ni dia dibezakan dengan how many cattle. Dia pecah perintah lah, divide and rule by the British. So Tutsi and Hutu ni, siapa yang banyak cattle lembu ni, dia akan jadi puak Hutu. Dia macam kaya lah kat situ kan. Sebab susu mahal. Kat Rwanda ni susu mahal. So dikelaskan macam tu, sampailah bergaduh sehinggalah berlakunya genocide besar-besaran lah. Okay, isu yang berlaku di East Timor, Timor lah, declared independent after 27 years occupation by Indonesia, but anti-independent military forces unleashed a campaign of violence and destruction. Bila dia merdeka, ada pula krisis. So international effort, the United Nations Charter proclaimed one of the UN principles proposed as being to maintain international peace and security. Sometimes the UN effectively intervened in the crisis, sometimes it didn't. Okay, so the US found that its status as world economic and military superpower would not necessarily adequate to unchallenged world leadership. So the US would meet a host of challenges within the UN and form non-governmental organisation, NGO lah. Okay, as well as form a new enemies. Okay, so the next will be the second chapter. Ni ada sambungan je lah. So post-Cold War and the New World Order. So kita akan sambung on the next lah. So itu saja untuk kali ini. So the next will be continue to the next week lah. Okay. So terima kasih for your hearing. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.